Hey, good evening, you beautiful people. It's Mitchell Jacob, your favorite candidate for United States Congress. We're about to get live here for the February town hall, and I look forward to having this conversation with each of you. We'll get started here in roughly 5 minutes. Before I start launching into anything specific, go ahead. Text your friends, call your mom, call your dad, call your brothers and sisters. Invite everyone you know to come join this. If you're joining us on TikTok, make sure you hit the share button. And if you're joining on YouTube, excuse me, go ahead and share this on your personal YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it is that you prefer to use. Invite people to join this conversation. The more that are here, the better the conversation we can have. And I'm just looking forward to answering your questions, getting into things that matter most to the people who are going to be voting in this midterm election. While we get underway here, I just want to comment that here in Oklahoma, I don't know if you've noticed it, but the weather does not understand what's going on right now. The fact that I can wake up in the morning and it's 27 degrees, and then I'm walking outside just a little while ago and sweating. Welcome to Oklahoma. What a beautiful experience. I cannot wait for it to figure out whether we're in spring or winter, but I guess that'll take a moment for us to get there. While we're waiting and about to get started, go ahead. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything you want me to talk about, go ahead and start dropping those in the chat. That way we can start compiling those. Because again, I want to answer your questions. I want to address your concerns, and I want to make sure that these town halls are for you. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be voting. You're the one who's has to make a decision. And I just want to ensure that you can make an informed decision as you go about doing that. So again, my name is Mitchell Jacob, running for the United States Congress for Oklahoma's 4th District. If you're looking forward to voting Tom Cole out of office, then this is the place for you. I'm going to get started here in just about 2 or 3 minutes. Just want to give everyone time to get logged in as we get started. And I'm really looking forward to, again, addressing your questions, your concerns, and we've had a lot going on. There's Iran, there are tariffs, we had a State of the Union address, we have chaos in Mexico recently, we have the government is in a partial shutdown. There are a lot of things happening right now, and I want to make sure that I address the questions and topics and concerns that are closest to your heart. So I'm about to get started. Go ahead and start dropping your comments, questions that you have. So that we can start compiling those. I want to make sure that I'm addressing the things that are most important to you. And again, we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. So I just ask, text your family, friends, coworkers, call your mom, and invite them all to come join tonight, because this conversation, I want it to be about you. I want it to be about what's important to you, what matters to you. And ensure that I'm addressing the topics that you care about the most. So go ahead and start dropping those questions. Go ahead, if you'll do me a favor, please text your mom, brother, friend, and let's go ahead and bring everyone into this conversation, because the more people who join, the more productive the conversation can be. And at the end of the day, I'm asking for your vote in November, and that means that you must have the opportunity to ask your questions. So go ahead. Send your questions. You can drop them in the chat. You can send them to mitch@mitchelljacob.com. We can check that too. And if you're joining on YouTube or TikTok, wherever you're joining, I look forward to being able to answer your questions personally and specifically. So go ahead and put those in there, and we'll get started on those here momentarily. As we're getting ready to get started, while I'm waiting for everyone to join, what are some of your takeaways or biggest concerns from watching or listening to the State of the Union address? I know there were quite a few things I did not like about it, and I'd like to see if you have anything that you'd like me to discuss or address, again, from that State of the Union address as well. So I see people are starting to join. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a great conversation, and I do look forward to being able to have this time with you. I do look forward each month to these virtual town halls. It's just our chance to be a little cozier, a little comfier, be able to engage one-on-one in a way that is just difficult sometimes because life gets busy, the world gets busy. and looking forward to this. So before we get into specific questions tonight or address any particular topics, just want to do a brief introduce myself, do a brief overview of my background, my campaign, and then what I want to accomplish when I get into the United States Congress, and then we'll switch over to some of the questions. So my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm your favorite candidate for United States Congress. I'm running for Oklahoma's 4th district. That seat is currently held by Tom Cole, and he's been in that seat for 23 years. In fact, the seat he holds is now old enough to drink. Let that settle in a little bit. At the end of the day, I believe that it's time that one of the people, someone like you and someone like me, holds that seat again. And I am a 4th generation Okie. I'm one of 9 children. I've had a career like so many others. It started right after high school, working as a dishwasher, busboy, working in restaurants, things like that. And I was a college dropout initially. But from there, I had the pleasure of becoming a mortgage loan originator, then a banker, then a stockbroker. I've had the opportunity to serve for 5.5 years in the United States Army, where I was a cryptologic linguist. I had a chance to deploy to southern Syria in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. And today I am a college graduate. I've earned 4 degrees, and I am a public defender. And I work as a public defender as my 9 to 5, and then campaign by night. I'm really glad that you're joining tonight, and I look forward to addressing your questions. The 3 planks of my campaign are relatively simple. Number 1, and I can't believe I have to run on this in 2026, but that is strict adherence to the Constitution. The Constitution is the foundational document of the United States of America. It is not a set of guidelines or parameters. It is the limit of government authority. And where that authority ends, your personal rights and your individual liberties begin. And I think that that's forgotten by the government far too often, and it's time that we enforce your rights once again. The second plank of my campaign is the national debt. My friends, we owe as a country $38 trillion. That is an astounding number. And so I've done some math for you to put that in perspective, because I believe that it is crucial that we eliminate that federal debt. We are currently spending $1.2 trillion per year as a country, your taxpayer dollars, just on interest on the federal debt. That's before we pay for a single program or a tax refund or anything. $1.2 trillion per year. That is $95.8 billion per month. And what that means right now is that every single month's interest payment from the federal government would fund the entire state of Oklahoma for 8 years. That's a ratio of 1 to 96 on interest payments versus the entire state of Oklahoma's annual budget. That is astounding. That means that we are hemorrhaging your children and your grandchildren's future every single month right here in the United States. And number 3 for me is public education. I'm a proud product of public school. I have 5 boys. They go to public school. And I simply believe that we should be treating education like an investment, not an expense. Because at the end of the day, it is only a net positive for our country to invest in the intelligence, outcome, future, skills, and develop our children. And I want us to treat it that way again. And it strikes me whenever we talk about education, especially here in Oklahoma, that we tend to compare ourselves to other states. And while that makes sense at its core, I think it misses the point ultimately. What I think we should be doing is looking at the United States educational ranking globally. Because right now, the United States is on a rapid decline to the bottom in the entire world. When I want us to be number 1 in the world for quality education. Because then, regardless of whether you live in a state that's number 1 in the United States or number 50 in the United States, your children are receiving a world-class education. And at the end of the day, that is what is important. That is what is crucial. And I just want your children to be able to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. Just had a question come in. Let's take a look. What can we do if the president doesn't follow Supreme Court decision about tariffs? He has already said that he is setting tariffs at 15%. How can he do this still? And do you think we will get a refund? So let me say this. Yes, refunds are going to be given, but my friends, hear me clearly. You're not going to receive it, and neither will I. FedEx recently sued just the other day the federal government to demand a refund in the wake of the Supreme Court decision last Friday saying that the tariffs that Donald Trump was imposing, as I've been saying for months, were in fact illegal, and he did not have the authority to do it. And so FedEx has sued under that to receive a refund. But we've already paid the difference. We have already spent the money and given it to these corporations. So whenever they receive a refund for the tariffs that you paid, they're going to keep it. And he's reimposed new global tariffs on every single country of 15%, using a different authority that will also ultimately be found to be illegal. And if you ask why he doesn't have the authority to impose these tariffs, I'll just point you back to the United States Constitution. Article 1 of the United States Constitution says quite clearly that the taxing authority lies with Congress, and thus only Congress has the ability to levy a tax, and in this case, to levy a tariff. It is not the president's role, job, authority, purview. He has no authority to do that without a grant of authority by the Congress, and that simply has not happened in this case. And so once again, we have illegal tariffs going into place that are sending inflation up, prices up, that is taking money from hardworking Americans and businesses all over the country, instead of doing anything positive or productive to improve the lives of Americans. I see two questions over here. I'm going to read them, but I don't have an answer for them right now because I'm going to need them clarified. What is my stance on parenting? You're going to have to clarify that question for me. And what is a government? If I could get a clarifying answer on that, on what you're asking me, that would be great, because those seem very broad. And I want to make sure I'm answering the question that you're actually posing to me. While you retype that question or clarify that for me, I just want to address the three things that I plan to tackle when you elect me to the United States Congress. Number one, and this might hit close to home for some. Have you had a doctor recommend a course of treatment, surgery, something, and then the medical insurance company comes back and denies that particular treatment? This is happening far too often in our country. And at the end of the day, it means that we have medical insurance companies that are practicing medicine that they are not allowed to do. Only doctors are allowed to practice medicine. And so what I propose and what I will champion when you elect me is what I call the DNA Act, the Doctors Not Accountants Act. And at its core, the DNA Act will say that if a doctor recommends a particular course of treatment, prognosis, whatever the case may be, then if the insurance company wants to challenge that, it will take two duly licensed physicians who have taken the Hippocratic Oath to override that medical advice, because the insurance company should not be practicing medicine when it is your life, your money, your premium that is on the line and at stake. So the DNA Act is number one. Number two, one thing that I'm very, very proud of Oklahoma on is that Oklahoma has a single subject rule. So for those who are not familiar, the single subject rule in Oklahoma comes from our state constitution, and at its core, it's relatively simple. It simply states that when a bill goes through the Oklahoma legislature and when it's signed into law by the governor, that it can only be about a single subject, whether that be a new tax, repealing a tax, a new agency, criminal justice reform, whatever the case may be. It can only be about that one subject and nothing else. And what that means is that you cannot have special interest riders, no pork barreling, none of the things that we see with the federal government on a far too regular basis. And I'm incredibly proud of Oklahoma for putting that into the Constitution and safeguarding the legislature and preventing it from being co-opted in many ways by special interests. And if we reflect on this, we can see how that would radically change the outcome of, for example, the One Big Beautiful Bill, where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of individual, different, distinct subjects or provisions were rammed into a single bill. A single subject rule would not only prevent this, it would force the federal government to vote on each one of those items individually. And while Congress would certainly have the authority to pass each of those items once again, it would not allow representatives and senators to hide behind some big bill that nobody can read because it was intentionally designed so that you and I could not understand it. And while the federal government can do those things, what I want is for them to vote on them individually so that you and I can look up how each representative and each senator voted on each and every one of those topics. At the end of the day, what I'm asking for is transparency and accountability by the federal government. And number 3, we know right now that the most likely reason for a child in the United States, someone under 18, to die is through gun violence. And let me say this clearly. I am a veteran of the United States Army. I swore an oath when I enlisted to support and defend the United States Constitution. I swore it again when I swore my oath of attorney. And I believe in the Second Amendment. I love going to the gun range. At the end of the day, what I'm asking for is responsible gun ownership, because we know from the Declaration of Independence that we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if we each have the right to life, then it means that there is a limit at some point to any one of our individual rights. And so I propose the HOPE Act. I call it the Holding Our Parents Equally Accountable Act. And it is a relatively simple bill. What it will say, because right now under federal law in the United States of America, it is in fact illegal for a minor, anyone under 18, in some cases 21, to own a firearm. That is a simple fact. And so what the HOPE Act will say is that if you purchase a firearm for a minor, and that minor uses that weapon to commit a school shooting, mass shooting, murder, whatever the case may be, then that person who bought that weapon for them will be vicariously liable for the exact same charges as that minor. And it will have a carve-out, a lesser charge, for negligent storage, where somebody purchases a firearm, fails to store it, a child gains access to it, and as a result, someone dies. Again, I call that the HOPE Act because I believe that our children are our most valuable asset, and I'm here to protect your Second Amendment right and protect the right to life for America's children. Thanks for checking in with me. Let's go back to the question over here. Where do I stand on the government shutdown over ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement? How long should we wait it out for the ICE provisions to be updated before passing a budget? Because, it might never end. At the end of the day, going back to what I was just saying a moment ago, I demand from our federal government transparency and accountability. And part of that is, I see your question about First Amendment rights, and I'll get to that in just one moment. At the end of the day, I demand accountability and transparency from the federal government. That means that we can't be accountable whenever, for example, masked men are patrolling the streets. That's not accountability. Or refusal to have body cameras on these law enforcement officers. That's also not accountability. And it's time that we demand that. In fact, we have a right as Americans to demand transparency and accountability from our federal government. And so I stand with my colleagues who are demanding this transparency and accountability, because at the end of the day, despite how often Trump likes to say it, this is not a Democrat shutdown. The Republican Party holds power in the Senate, the House, and at this point, the executive branch. This is on them. They must, and that is a simple point. Any government must compromise. That is a simple truth. You cannot say it will only be our way because we hold the power. That doesn't work that way, and that means that it's a failure on the party in power to in any way negotiate, compromise, or make a deal that would move us forward. And asking for accountability and transparency is the bare minimum for good government. And so what we have is a government that believes that all it needs to do is lie again, and never have to tell the truth until it gets its way. And so for a variety of reasons, because I believe that you deserve that transparency and accountability, because I do not believe that this is about immigration, because they keep talking about deportation while building detention centers, because I believe that killing American citizens on the streets of Minneapolis is criminal and a travesty. I stand with my colleagues who are demanding this transparency and accountability before funding an out-of-control federal agency. It's time to rein in the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's time for DHS to do its job and bring that transparency and accountability, because it strikes me at the end of the day that while DHS has a funding lapse right now, that did not affect ICE, and ICE is still out there masked, not using body cams, and is in fact escalating the situation and is using tactics that local law enforcement is banned from using in most states of the United States of America. And I agree, wanting transparency should not be radical. And the fact that it is a radical stance right now, just in my opinion, shows what this administration is doing right now. And so I stand with my colleagues who are demanding that transparency and accountability. There was a question a moment ago about the First Amendment, and I think that that's very interesting because I noticed that last year in 2025, as well as my days blend together, so I think that was 2 nights ago that we had the State of the Union address. Representative Green has been kicked out of the State of the Union address 2 years in a row now. And what really, I'm going to soften my language there. What irks me is that first, he has a First Amendment right to free speech. But what's more interesting to me is that under Article 1 of the Constitution, Representative Green and any representative, quite frankly, under the speech and debate clause of the Article 1, he has the right on the House floor, which is where Donald Trump drove himself to, and he was in the United States Capitol. This was not at the White House. This was at the Capitol on the floor of the House. Under Article 1, any representative or senator has full immunity from their words, speech, if you will, on the House floor. And it was perfectly legal for Al Green to shout, to shake his cane, to have a sign up, to say anything he wants on the House floor. That is his right. It's his constitutional right under the First Amendment and Article 1 of the Constitution. That is not where Donald Trump works. He was a guest there, an interloper, if you will, and yet he still took the step to kick a sitting representative off of the House floor. That is illegal. It is unconstitutional, and that is at its core what we're talking about here. If we can't even protect and safeguard the rights of our sitting legislators, how little do they care about the rights of people like you and me? Again, we have dead Americans. ICE has killed, and this is only accurate up to February 10th. I have failed to update this number, but 43 people have died in the last year under ICE custody, 2 of which are American citizens. And any one of those was too many deaths for me. It is time to bring this administration back under control. It is time for transparency, accountability, body cam. It's time that they obey the law and, for example, release the Epstein files and stop protecting child rapists, pedophiles, and other sexual predators at this point. I am disgusted and appalled by this administration, and I am running at the end of the day because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yes, and Senator Mullen, with little boy syndrome, attempted to rip that sign out of his hand, and it did put a small smile on my face that he failed to even be able to do that, because at anything that he does, Markwayne Mullen is a failure. You heard that from me first. Next question over here, just checking. What are my thoughts on the SAVE Act? Just reading it, bear with me. Shouldn't some people not be allowed? Shouldn't some people not be? What if you can't find the right paperwork? Do you know when this will be put into effect? So the SAVE Act has passed the United States House of Representatives and has been forwarded to the United States Senate for consideration. And ultimately what it says is that you will need to prove your United States citizenship in order to receive the right to vote going forward. I have fundamental issues with the SAVE Act. I've had a chance to read it. And in fact, if you go to my website, mitchelljacob.com, I believe it was just this last Sunday that I posted a blog about the SAVE Act, my thoughts on it, broke it down. And I encourage you to go to it. The blog is called Straight from Mitch. You can find it at the top or the bottom of the website. And I fundamentally disagree with it because I cannot figure out what it's trying to accomplish at the end of the day. Yes, it should be illegal for non-citizens to vote in at a minimum, a federal election, but generally speaking, I think that it should be illegal for non-citizens to vote in United States elections. But that's already the case. We don't need the SAVE Act to make that true. It is already illegal for non-citizens to cast votes. We call it fraud, and we have criminalized it. There have been study after study after study, and despite the liar-in-chief and grifter-in-chief's claims that there is rampant election fraud, I'm convinced that every accusation is just an admission of guilt and that he is the one perpetuating that. But we'll move on from that topic and say it this way. He is still raiding county election boards to grab ballots. He is still on this shtick about election fraud, but it has been proven false over and over and over and over again. Studies have shown that fewer than 0.0001% of every ballot cast in the 2024 election was fraudulent. At the end of the day, the Green Party is stealing more votes from any given party than any non-citizen or fraudulent enterprise or scheme which is occurring. And so it's, again, I don't support the SAVE Act because I cannot figure out what the end goal is, except perhaps to disenfranchise far more Americans. And that is what I cannot live with. Your right to vote, that is constitutional. That is inherent in democracy. And I will fight every day with my last breath to protect, defend, and promote your right to vote. And I hope that you're exercising that right. I hope that you're voting in the midterm and in the presidential and in your local municipal and in your school board and on your state questions and all of those. Your right to vote is critically important. It is how your voice is heard, and it is how you personally can shape the government and the United States around you. And that is why I do not support the SAVE Act. I don't have an answer for you on when it will actually go into effect. The Senate is still considering it, and the Senate will need to vote on the SAVE Act. It will need to be signed into law by Donald Trump. And then depending on all of that, I don't know if it will affect the midterm. But what I do know is that it is going to strip, at least by what we can find, 20 million Americans of their right to vote. Because the simple question is, can you find your passport and your birth certificate right now? And the SAVE Act, again, will remove, in fact, it will just create many barriers to registering to vote. It will eliminate online registration portals. It will eliminate voter registration drives generally and require you to physically go to a county or state or some sort of election board, prove your citizenship and your identity at the same time, and only then will they be able to issue that voter ID card. So no, I do not support the SAVE Act. I believe that it is not solving a problem, but creating a new one. And I believe that the problem that it claims to be addressing, it's already illegal for a non-citizen to vote, so it doesn't solve any new problem. The next question I have over here: Congress and the Trump administration are doing nothing to ensure that individuals involved in the Epstein case are caught. If they refuse to hold people accountable, can the next administration? And if so, what will I do to see that justice prevails? This one I really struggle with, let me rephrase what I'm saying. I cannot believe that we are here. I cannot believe that the United States federal government is actively protecting criminals, rapists, pedophiles. The United States is actively embracing evil at this point, and I will never, ever agree with that. And let's look across the pond. this revelation of the Epstein files, other countries are prosecuting people. In fact, in the United Kingdom, they stripped former Prince Andrew of his royal status, and he is under investigation. And yet we refuse in the United States to hold anyone accountable. The only one in any sort of detention right now over this is Ghislaine Maxwell, and she is at Club Fed, hanging out in Dallas. She has access to internet and a hairdresser, screens, phone, internet, tablets, all the things. And that is not justice. Pam Bondi refuses to address the survivors of these heinous acts. And we as a country are refusing to do anything about it. In fact, Kash Patel, instead of reviewing the Epstein files and going after those who have perpetuated some of these atrocities, evils, and heinous crimes, he thinks that his time is better served, one, spending your taxpayer dollars on an Italy trip, and two, partying with the USA hockey team instead of actually prosecuting crimes or investigating any of this. So can the next administration hold them accountable? Absolutely. The statute of limitations on this is going to be quite long, and there are many ways that we can go after these criminals. At the end of the day, though, my biggest worry right now is that we know that, one, Congress has already signed a law saying that the federal government must release all the Epstein files, and we know that that has not happened. In fact, a report was dropped just today by NPR, National Public Radio, showing that at least 50% of the files have actually to date not been released. It is astounding how many have, and yet we know that so many more are not being released. So they're violating the law. And my ultimate concern here is that they are deleting the evidence, that they are scrubbing it and permanently removing it, so that even when we get those who are willing to do their jobs and take them seriously, that there will be nothing left for them to find because it will have already been gone. That is one of my biggest concerns right now. And so what I say is, when you elect me into the United States Congress, I will happily vote in favor of forming a special prosecutorial team exclusively for the purpose of prosecuting, and I'm not going to call it the Epstein files anymore, the Trump files. We know that his name is mentioned at least 3.8 million times, and this is Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies who believe that they are above the law, that they can get away with anything they want, and it's time to prove them wrong. Thank you for joining me. I'm happy to be here tonight. Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat down below. I want to make sure I'm addressing the things that are most important to you. While you're typing those out, I just want to say this. My name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm running for the United States Congress. I am running for Oklahoma's 4th District, and I'm looking to unseat Tom Cole. If you're ready to make that happen, then quite frankly, I need your help. This is a big district, almost 800,000 people. And while I'm happy to do the work and put the thousands of miles on my car, I can't do it alone. Can I count on you to come knock doors, make phone calls, write a check, and otherwise help make this possible? If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then join me in doing something about it. Run for office, help a local candidate, get involved, and make your voice heard. And at the end of the day, make sure that you vote. Far too many Americans are not voting. And that is exactly how we got here. And if you want to know a simple truth, my friends, look at how often you hear the phrase, your vote doesn't matter. It won't make a difference. Going to the ballots doesn't change anything. The only reason you hear that so often is because it's not true. There is an active campaign, billions of dollars being spent to convince you that you are small and insignificant and your individual vote does not matter. But I'm here to tell you that that is not true. They would not say that so often, and repeat it so insistently if it weren't true. And your voice and vote are critically important, and especially right here in Oklahoma. Fewer than 50% of registered voters, not even Oklahomans, fewer than 50% of registered voters actually go out and vote. And only about 56% of the state is registered to vote to begin with. So generally speaking, 20 to 25% of Oklahoma residents pick the candidates each individual year. I say those numbers to tell you this. In Oklahoma, your vote is actually far more powerful than it is in many other states. And every vote carries so much more because so many people are choosing not to vote. So make sure that you go cast your vote. Convince your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, and your children, your mom, your dad. Tell them all to vote because it really matters. Thank you all for joining. Again, my name is Mitchell Jacob, running for the United States Congress, and I'm looking to unseat Tom Cole because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I'm ready for one of the people, someone like you and someone like me, to finally hold that seat again. Let's do it together. Going to the next question. Let's see. What am I doing? Oh, okay. What am I doing, and what can we do to help independents understand the change in them not being able to vote in the primary? And what problems do I see this causing when they arrive to vote? Let me start by saying that last June of 25, I personally voted to ensure that the Democratic primary here in Oklahoma was open to independents. Unfortunately, the leadership in the state party failed to file that paperwork, and as a result, all primaries in the state of Oklahoma in 2026 are now closed. And say that a different way, independents, you cannot vote in a primary this year. But don't lose hope and don't lose faith, because you still get to vote on primary election day. And that date, by the way, is June 16th, Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. Regardless of your party registration, you need to show up to vote. And here's why. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, clearly you have a primary. But even independents and libertarians, you get to vote on State Question 832, which is the minimum wage proposition to increase the minimum wage in Oklahoma to $15 per hour. And if you believe that it's time for a $15 minimum wage in the state of Oklahoma, then make sure you show up to vote, even if you're not going to be voting in one of those primaries, because your voice still matters. But regardless of that, on November 3rd, that is our midterm election this year. On November 3rd, you'll all be able to vote. And so please get involved, learn the candidates, and know that while the primaries may be closed, and I'm so sorry that that's the case again, I voted to allow you to vote in my personal primary. Just know that you will still get to vote on November 3rd. We have the most challenged elections in the state of Oklahoma already, and it's not even filing time, that we've had in at least 10 years. So regardless of where you live, there will absolutely be a contested race for you to vote on in November. And we've at least challenged every single congressional seat. There's going to be a challenged gubernatorial, lieutenant governor, attorney general, state superintendent. Yeah, so there are plenty of people for you to vote on in November. Sorry, I had to go through that mentally. And so definitely make sure you keep November 3rd on your calendar, and please put June 16th, even if you're an independent or libertarian, because you will get to vote on minimum wage, and I strongly encourage you to do that. So again, my name is Mitchell Jacob, running for the United States Congress, and I need your help to make that happen. I am running as a Democrat. I suppose I should say that more clearly. And I am looking to unseat Tom Cole because I do not believe that he is currently representing you, me, this district, or this state at this point. And I'm ready for one of the people to hold that seat again. This question is, do I think we are going to go to war soon with Iran? Honestly, no, but I do think that we're going to create some problems for ourselves. As you hopefully know, I believe it was last June, don't quote me on that, we did multiple strikes in Iran on nuclear enrichment facilities, according to the United States federal government. And that was all without congressional authorization. I will say that that is a dangerous position to take. We also know that we have the largest buildup of United States military forces in the Persian Gulf right now, larger than we've seen in years, possibly over a decade. I'd have to go check to see which one of those is most true. But we have a massive military presence of being built up in that region. And it just reminds me of Roosevelt's quote from about 125 years ago: talk softly and carry a big stick. At this point, I do believe that it's time for us to engage in real negotiations with Iran regarding its nuclear programs, its military, its ambitions, probably not murdering the protesters in the streets of Tehran and other places. And one way that we can do that is with leverage. And this does create an extraordinary amount of leverage. What I do not agree with is, again, any strikes within the country without congressional authorization. We are not at war with Iran, and we have the president right now, as it stands, has no authority, no right, and no power to conduct military operations in that country. And I will not support an extra constitutional or perhaps unconstitutional action and military use of force without going to the Congress to receive it first. My three major planks, my friends, are quite simple. Number one, in 2026, I can't believe that I have to run on this, but here we are. Strict adherence to the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States of America is the document that governs our country. It is not a set of guidelines or parameters, and it is on the federal government to become compliant with that again, because at the end of the day, what it does is limit government power, and anything that is the federal government or state in some cases is not allowed to do belongs to the people or the states. And I believe that we have forgotten this. We have seen the most massive expansion of the federal government over the past year. We now have federal agents that are just masked and patrolling our streets, detaining and arresting American citizens, deporting without confirming citizenship. And while the administration constantly says it's about going after criminals, we know that over 70% of those who are being detained, deported, and arrested by this administration have not in any way committed a crime. And yes, let me say it because many people do not know this. It is not a crime to enter the United States of America without documentation. Now, I will also say quite clearly that you must go through the process, you must apply for citizenship, and you must do it the right way. But it is not a crime to have done that. And so while I agree with the mission of deporting those who have committed crimes, that's not what's happening. And it also strikes me that it's constantly a message about deporting criminals. And if that were true, then why is it that the federal government is building massive detention centers and ultimately concentration camps all across the country? If the point is to deport people, we do not need, in Oklahoma, for example, a sixth ICE detention facility. 6 in the state of Oklahoma, and I cannot even imagine how many are being built across the country. Anyway, we must return to constitutional balance, and it is strict adherence to the Constitution that I personally demand from this administration. Number 2 for me is our federal debt. Did you know that right now we owe $38 trillion? Did you also know that $20 trillion of that was borrowed in just the last 9 years? So I'll ask you quite simply, do you feel $20 trillion richer? Because I sure don't. And as a result of this mass borrowing spree that the United States has been embarking upon, we are currently spending $1.2 trillion per year on just interest on the federal debt. That is according to treasury.gov. In fact, we owe so much money that net interest or just interest on our existing debt is our second largest line item for the federal government generally. That is before we pay for education, Social Security, Medicare, any sort of service, any sort of grant, or any sort of spending. It is the second largest line item, coming in only behind Social Security and other types of programs like that. And I've done some math because $38 trillion or $95.8 billion per month in spending on interest is just, they're astoundingly large numbers, and I couldn't really do anything with that. So I've done some math with you. I'm not an accountant. I don't account for inflation and parity and things like that. So take this with a grain of salt that I ask you to take it with. But our $95.8 billion per month that we spend on just interest on just the federal debt would fund the entire state of Oklahoma, every single one of her agencies and operations for 8 years. 1 month's interest payment would fund the entire state of Oklahoma for 8 years. That is your children and your grandchildren's future that we are hemorrhaging every single month in just interest on just the federal debt. And we know that other countries like China, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and others, they own large blocks of federal debt right here in, they own large blocks of United States debt, which means that at the end of the day, your taxpayer money is going to foreign governments to fund their investment into our country. It's not even going to other Americans and not even American corporations. And I have major concerns with that. And I believe that it is time that we eliminate the federal debt. It will be painful and it's going to cause some pain. But we got ourselves into this mess. It's on us to get it out of it. And number 3 for me is public education. I am a huge proponent of public education. I believe that public education is the greatest equalizer of our time. And I want to see more. I want to see the United States treat education like an investment, not an expense. Because at the end of the day, your children are absolutely worth the money we spend on educating them. And I want to see us continue to embrace that. And it strikes me whenever we talk about public education, that we typically are comparing, for example, Oklahoma to other states. But that misses the mark in my view, because the point is to create the best education, a quality education for every single student attending school. And when we compare one state to another, what we're missing is the fact that every single year, the United States as a country, our ranking globally in education continues to fall. It is like we are racing to the bottom while patting ourselves on the back for being the best of the losers. And it's time we reverse that. What I want to see is the United States become number 1 in the world for education. That way, regardless of whether your child goes to school in the number 1 state in the U.S. or the number 50 state in the U.S., they will still be receiving a world-class education. And that should be the goal. That should be the standard by which we compare ourselves. And that should be what we ultimately aim to accomplish as a country. And we must stop this constant race to the bottom of the barrel. My friends, I encourage you to drop your questions right now because I really enjoy this time that I get with you. And I want to make sure that I'm addressing your questions, your concerns, and the things that are most important to you. In case you're just joining, my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm running for the United States Congress. I'm seeking to unseat Tom Cole, and I'm running to secure Oklahoma's 4th district. Drop your questions right now, and I'll take this one while you type those out. With everything going on, we forgot that healthcare was so important that we shut down the government. We haven't heard anything. What is the update? Has it hit the people in Oklahoma yet? And what do we need to know? At the end of the day, to say it as simply as I can, yes. The premium tax credits that the federal government was shut down over, they expired. And we are already past open season. So for those who enrolled in those plans, hoping and praying that Senate Republicans would do what they promised, they have been shafted. And many Americans are right now dealing with massive spikes in their health insurance premiums. I haven't read the latest report, but I do know that rural hospitals in Oklahoma are facing the brunt of this. Because you can imagine that when people receive that first bill, they drop their health insurance. But then they still have to go to the hospital. And now they don't have insurance, which means the hospital's not getting paid. And we know, reports are coming out about the strain that this is and will put on our rural hospitals. I don't have a solution for you right now. It's not being debated so far as I hear. I don't hear updates on it. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, I believe Americans they're going to die as a result of this poor policy. Because what I do know is that 50,000 Oklahomans refused in the new year to renew their health insurance policy as a result of the expiration of those credits and as a result of the increase in their premium. And that's only in Oklahoma, and that's only within a month and a half of this happening. I can only imagine what the ramifications of this are going to be over the long term. if the federal government fails. At the end of the day, if it fails to do anything to address this problem. And if it's affecting you, reach out. I'd love to hear more about it. I'd love to learn how I can go about addressing this. And I'd like to hear your story. My personal email is Mitch, M-I-T-C-H, at mitchelljacob.com. My cell phone number, and I'll read it in just a second so you can pull out that pen and paper. Text me, call me. I'd love to hear your story. My cell phone number is 405-407-6975. That was 405-407-6975. I ask you not to call me right now. You'll interrupt the live streams. But I would love to hear your story. I'd love to talk to you, and I'd love to learn, frankly, how the federal government is failing you and how it can best serve you. All right, let's take a look at this question over here. I'm not going to read the question in full, but the question is about our Muslim friends in the United States of America. And let me say this, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your background, religion, beliefs, wherever you were born, however you come to be here right now, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I want to embrace you and celebrate you. And I believe that diversity makes us better. We are seeing a rise in candidates who are attacking others based upon their religious preferences and their beliefs. I mean, look at the mayoral election in New York. Look at gubernatorial candidate Charles McCall and his ads about Sharia law right here in Oklahoma. At the end of the day, what I believe is happening, in addition to blatant racism, blatant bigotry, xenophobia, that's happening for sure. We've seen this playbook before. If you go back to the 1930s, there was a country that believed that if you just gave the people an enemy and you had them focus, and you relentlessly attacked that small group of people. We saw it first with trans, then we saw it with our immigrant community, and now we're seeing it of people of different religious beliefs. That if you continue to relentlessly attack that, then you could give the people an enemy such that they would never turn around and question your actions. And that is what I believe you're seeing right now. They're trying to give the people an enemy to focus upon so that we fail to notice the illegal tariffs, the bankrupting of American businesses, the skyrocketing inflation, the affordability crisis, the increase in premiums for health insurance, the gutting of health programs generally in the United States, the dismantling of the Department of Education, the dismantling of USAID, the killing of American citizens, the building of concentration camps, the wearing of masks, the lack of accountability and transparency. That's what they want you to ignore, and so much more. And the way they're attempting to do it is by just trying to give the people an enemy. And I just want to say again, wherever you're from, whatever your beliefs, whatever your background, however you come to be here right now, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I want to be a friend of yours because I believe quite truly that this country is made better by diversity. I believe that immigrants make America better. Immigrants ultimately built this country. And I remember when I was a kid in elementary school, I received many lessons on the fact that the United States of America is a melting pot. And we did cultural immersion days wow, it's been a long time since I thought about this, but we did all kinds of around the world days and things like that to learn about other cultures, religions, and people. And that is missing today. We should celebrate differences, not use them to divide us, because our differences are what make this place better. If we were all clones and carbon copies of one another, then this would not be an interesting place to live by any means. And there are far stronger things I could say there, but the premise being, I want you here, and I'm glad that you are. My friends, a couple announcements I'd like to take a moment to point out. Again, my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm running for the United States Congress. I'm looking to secure your vote for the 2026 midterm on November Third, so that we can unseat Tom Cole, so that we can bring accountability and transparency back to the federal government, and so that we can force this administration to do the will of the people, listen to the American people, and to stop its unconstitutional, blatantly illegal march against your rights. In order to do that, I need your help. This Saturday at 10 a.m., right here where I'm sitting at 300 West Gray in Norman, Oklahoma, I'll say that address again in a moment, we're knocking doors. I would love to have you here. If you don't want to knock doors, then come on Sunday, this Sunday at 2 p.m., 300 West Gray, Norman, Oklahoma, and join me for a phone bank. I need your help to make this happen. This district is almost 800,000 people. There's no way I will be able to do this on my own, and I will need your help to make it happen. If those don't work for you this weekend, then just reach out. Go to the website, mitchelljacob.com. Sign up to volunteer. Sign up to receive the weekly newsletter so that you can stay involved and up to date with the campaign. I encourage you to swing by the headquarters and get a yard sign. You would love, I promise your neighbors will be super jealous of this beautiful scissor tail. And I just believe that you should be the most fashionable person on your street. So come and get a yard sign and represent the campaign, because we have to make change. And it will take all of us doing it together. No individual among us is going to be able to hold this administration accountable. So instead, we must all do it together. And I need your help, because I'm out here. I promise I'm going to the events. I'm knocking the doors. I'm making the phone calls. And I'm putting in the hours and the nights and the work. And I need your help to do all of it. I do these virtual hangouts. Tell your family, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers about the next one. Tell them to come join and be a part of this conversation. Share everything you see from social media. You can find events, upcoming volunteer opportunities, and so much more on Facebook. Please get involved. And my friends, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. The fact that some of you stayed this whole time to listen and join speaks volumes about how much you care about your country. And so do I. I hope you'll reach out. I hope you'll get involved. And again, I'll read my cell phone number here in just one moment, so prepare to copy. But 300 West Gray, Norman, Oklahoma, that's the headquarters. This district that I'm running for, Oklahoma's 4th, it's 14 counties. It is Cleveland County, McLean County, Grady County, Garvin County, Stevens County, Murray County, Pontotoc County, Love County, Jefferson, Tillman, Cotton, Oklahoma. Oh, I missed 2. I'm so sorry. It's hard to do it from the top of my head sometimes. It's massive. It goes from South Oklahoma City all the way to the Texas border. And I would love to have you get involved. And if you're willing to, my cell phone number is 405-407-6975. It was a pleasure speaking with you tonight. I look forward to getting to shake your hand here soon. Thank you. It did not, there were not.